Greetings, Uncle Travelling Matt here, reporting back on what I believe is the 8th day of my trip around Bulgaria with Alex. And I'm in Varna, the city I used to live in. Love this place. I'll talk about that later. This morning, we woke up in Shumen. Yes, Shumen. Woke up in Shumen. I did the video from the hotel in Shumen last night. Yeah, that's it. Woke up in Shumen. And we had a bit of an explore around Shumen because it was a Sunday, so most places were shut, which is a bit of a shame because there was numerous museums. But we were looking for somewhere to have breakfast and wandering through Shumen, and came across this very nice, like, National Revival type looking house, but with another one in front of it there. They were selling traditional, like, Balkan style coffee. So we decided we'd go in there, had this coffee with a very nice biscuit, and we said, "Oh, the house at the back, is it open?" And the woman was like, "I can open it for you." So we had a look around this National Revival house. It was a really good one, actually. And I'll write the name in the thing at the bottom. But it was interesting because they'd done different rooms in different styles. So, like, one was done in the style of the guy who lived there, who was a chemist, and he was Christian. But there was one done as if it was the finest hotel in Sofia in that period. One was done in as if it was a Jewish room, one as if it was Roma, and one as if it was Armenian. And I guess it was to reflect the different cultures in Shumen. And Shumen really is one of the most multicultural Bulgarian cities, although it's a bit sorry for itself these days. It did seem a bit rough around the edges still. Which is a shame because it's a city that I think has immense potential if it ever got its act together. I mean, it's better than it was, but it's still not quite there. So we walked through. Shumen's a long, thin city, and it sort of funnels to the head of a valley. So we walked along, and our main aim was to get to the Tombul Mosque. The Tombul Mosque is the second largest in the Balkans. I believe it's the biggest in Bulgaria. A wonderful 17th or 18th century, I think it's 17th century mosque. Been done up since I was last there. Fantastic mosque, large dome, wonderful decorations, but very Baroque as well. So, you know, some of them would not look out of place in a French chateau. Like quite floral and, you know, like, well, Baroque really. But yeah, it was great to go in there, and like I say, it's been done up. It's looking much better than it was last time I was there, but I don't think it's been over restored, which was nice. And we went in there, sat in there for quite a while, explored it. There was two great pictures, one of Mecca and one of Medina up on the wall. I remember them from last time when I went. But I went several times and I lived here because I liked it so much. And then there's a courtyard next to it where there was an old madrasa and a library as well. So that was nice. Then we had a little mooch around, climbed up a few streets to find the Armenian church, Victorian type era one, but it was shut. And also had a look at the Methodist and Evangelical church, but there was a service going on, so we didn't go in. But a little cutesy church. The building that's most interesting around there is one called the Bezistan. I think Bezistan means market, and it's this big stone Ottoman building that's derelict. And this is what I mean about Shumen. If Shumen got its act together, you've got this amazing Tombul Mosque, and like very near you've got this Bezistan, which could be coffee shops, restaurants, and you could have a kind of pseudo-Ottoman area that I think would be really, really like nice for tourists. Then we went back into the centre, and the main square of Shumen, it always, I won't say I like it, but it's got character because there was this monster communist development. Now, quite what it was, I'm not sure. Maybe it was a hotel, or maybe it was like some office complex or municipal complex, I don't know. But there's this massive skyscraper, and it's like a cultural centre, and it never got finished. So it's just this abandoned shell on the main square. And the main square is long and thin, like the rest of Shumen. And at the end of it is this just shell of a building. It's you know, quite apocalyptic. But we wandered down it, and there were people like, there was a lot of noise, and there were people like boy racers. But it was like a proper competition. So there was people with like old Ladas and like Volkswagen Golfs, and they just look like normal cars, but people were racing around this track, but they weren't even racing, they were just like spinning them and screeching the tyres, but it was like this professional thing, and people were judging it and that, and yeah, not my scene, but I guess what else have you got to occupy your time in Shumen on a Sunday? And there was a nice kebab stall there, so we had some kebab and then moved on. And then after Shumen, we drove to a place called Preslav, or Veliki Preslav. Now, that's one of two former capitals of Bulgaria. So I taught that, obviously, Sofia is the capital now. Before that, Trnava was the capital. But before that, it was Preslav. And one of the Tsars, I think it was Tsar Simeon the Great, made it the capital. Or maybe it was Boris Mikhail, I'm not sure. And he made it the capital, and he had his royal palace there. And there's this quote that was put down everywhere by this. He was an ecclesiastical figure, was saying, like, if you're a foreigner who came there and you walked into this palace, it would like boggle your mind, because you would not have known such wealth and grandeur even in your own country. And you know, it's hard to imagine that now, but the setting was quite evocative, and you got a sense of it. The ruins were more extensive than I thought, and we had a good look round them. There was the palace, there was several churches, there was some walls, and some of the gates were rebuilt. So you got a sense of it. It was the Patriarch's Palace as well. But it was one of the places that I'd always thought I should have gone to in Bulgaria and never got round to. So we went there, stopped in the town on the way back, because there was a very nice abstract sculpture, looked done by the same guy that did the 1,300 Years Monument. And then we motored on to a place called Madara. Now, Madara is very famous because there's the Madara Horseman, or the Madara Rider, is carved into the rock, and it's a life-size man on a horse with a dog and a lion in his feet, thought to represent one of the early Khans of Bulgaria, and he's carved into a cliff face. Apparently it's either the only one in Europe or the biggest one in Europe. And it appears on the back of the coin, I think. I think it does. I think it appears on the coin. I've got a coin here. Well, not them ones, it doesn't. Ah, there it is, yeah. I don't know if the camera will pick this up. If it doesn't, there it is, you can see. Yeah, there he is. So that is the Madara Horseman. So he's on all the Statinki coins, not the Lev ones, but the Statinki ones. And it's like a national symbol of Bulgaria. Now, I'd seen a cast of it in the Archaeological Museum in Sofia, but this is the real thing. I had to pay the ticket and climb up about 200 steps to get to it, and it was impressive, but a bit like Stonehenge. Once you've seen it, you've seen it. There's not a lot there, it's just a carved horse on a cliff. So yeah, I'm glad I've seen it, but it didn't stick around long because that was all there was. Then we went onwards to a place called Pliska, and Pliska is the oldest of the capitals. So that was the capital before Preslav. Do you know what? I found it quite an atmospheric place, because it's on this wide, like, almost feels like a step. You know, wide windswept step, and it was quite cloudy when we got there, so it was, you know, quite atmospheric in that way. And of course, the early Khans came across from the Central Asian steppe. They were nomads who were very much like the Huns, the Mongols perhaps. They lived in yurts, and they came here and they pitched their tents on this spot. And I thought, well, I can imagine why, because it probably reminded them of home. And then later, you know, they built a palace and walls around it, and that became their capital. So Pliska was that. There was a big section of rebuilt wall when we went in, very obviously rebuilt, but it gave a sense of the scale. And again, I wasn't expecting much from Pliska, but when we got in, it was quite good. I mean, in the centre was the palace of Khan Khrom, I think it was, who was one of the very early ones. And that was huge. And then it was burnt down, and Omotag rebuilt a palace on top, and that was much smaller, and you know, you could see how it regressed. But there were ruins of a big basilica, and then another one assumes later palace concept complex with a little patriarchal church and stuff. And there was a big pavement under a roof, and there was a museum that we went in, and the museum had photos of when Todor Zhivkov and other dignitaries visited there. But what I liked, there was this picture of this great basilica. Well, there was a model of the great basilica, and I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind having a look at that. Well, where was it? We hadn't seen it, and it turned out it was a couple of kilometres away up the road. So we got back in the car, went up to this great basilica, which was virtually all destroyed, but they've rebuilt a lot of it, and it's quite dramatic actually. We're glad we did that. So that was Pliska. That done, then we got in the car and motored all the way to Varna. Quite nice journey, obviously a journey I made before. One bit going through Devny, which is a big industrial complex I wrote about in my novel, The Shells. There's a ropeway with like tubs that goes over the road and the railway, and it was working as we went, so we got a film of these tubs going over the road. It's quite cool, because I thought that would have been long gone, but no, it's still working. In Varna though, very heavy traffic, and couldn't park in it, couldn't park near the hostel, so I had a real problem, because like Alex checked in and then I was looking for parking, couldn't find some. In the end I had to go I went to a McDonald's on the edge of town, then their Wi-Fi didn't work, so I went to coffee shop next door, got Wi-Fi, and they told us about some parking in the centre of town. So I parked there, paid for 36 hours parking, and then made our way to the hostel. Absolutely knackered and stressed out by then. Bit of a dump as well, not the greatest place, but it's cheap. Although not as cheap as the hotels we've been staying in, and they were much nicer. But this is Varna, we're in tourist town now. The prices are higher, there's plenty of money around, plenty of tourists. You know, that's where we are. And tonight we went to Orient, which was always my favourite restaurant. I once wrote a story there in a single setting called The Villa on the Corner, which was one of my favourite stories. And Orient is a Turkish restaurant owned and run by Turks in the old city, and excellent food. I always enjoyed it at Orient. But the girls who served us, they weren't Turkish, they looked Chinese, and not very good actually. They were always seemed in a rush, like they were too busy to serve you. But at the end I asked one, I said, oh, are you Vietnamese? And she said, no, we're from Kyrgyzstan. So, sort of Turkish, I guess. But anyway, that was that, and this is the end of the day in the centre of Varna. Uncle Travelling Matt saying, keep travelling.